Hey everybody, welcome back to Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where two friends giggle, snort, recap, and review their way through romance novels. Last week, we experienced part 1 of Anne Gracie's The Autumn Bride. We met Abby Chantry and her 3 Chance sisters after a harrowing brothel escape and various other cat burglary escapades, which brought them into the home of the magnificent Lady Beatrice. My lady love cup runneth over. Enter Lady B's nephew, Max, a towering Viking of suspicion and a hefty helping of lust for our pure-hearted Abby. When we left them, they'd just survived an alleyway attack and brawl, which culminated in a hot and heavy makeout session. So much adrenaline, and there wasn't even a car chase. Can they overcome their initial differences and obstacles? After all, he is technically engaged to someone else. Let's find out! So he's like, I'm sorry. And she's like, there's nothing to be sorry about. And then he's like, you have blood on your back. And she's like, it's not my blood, it's your blood.
And then they realize it's a big stab.
It's a slash.
It's a big stab. It's a big stab. Big stab. Big stab. Big
slash.
No, in fact, it's hilarious because I highlighted this and I wrote big stab because of firelight. And then, like a paragraph later, it literally says it was not a deep cut, but a slash. I laughed so hard. Wait, that doesn't mean you won the argument about firelight.
Oh, I did. No, I did.
That means that in this particular book, it was a slash. The things have nothing to do with each other.
It means that I won the argument in Firelight during our Firelight episode, and now I am just further vindicated.
He was a healing demon. That could have been the biggest stab in the world. They could have stabbed him
was a slash.
Through the neck. He was like Wolverine or whatever.
No, it was a deep slash, but it was a slash nonetheless. It was not a puncture. It was a slash.
It was a big slash.
Yes.
Anyway, but this one is I would say a medium slash.
Yeah, it's a respectable slash.
Yeah, it's a slash that we need to be a little concerned about. She had to tourniquet it.
Yes.
So
they get home and everybody's out of the kitchen and she's like, I need to take care of this. And he's like, they're both really awkward because of the kiss.
A lot of male stubbornness going on.
A lot of male stubbornness, yeah. So she's taking care of everything, and I think he's going to apologize, again.
He apologizes 10 times for smooching her, and it just makes her feel worse and worse and worse every time.
Because it always does.
Mm-hmm. I just feel like we skipped... Oh, you know what? We did skip something. Before the whole thing... No, but it's important. What's-her-face's friend, the one that wrote the letter, she comes over, and they read books to her and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I thought that was after this, but sure. So...
No,
Lady Bedlington
she came over before this, and then anyway, they get interested in books, and eventually they start a literary society.
Up until this point, Lady Beatrice hasn't read in a really long time because her eyes are bad. So the girls will read her various Jane Austen works. It's always Jane Austen. Also, every chapter of this, and I think the rest of the books, definitely book 2 as well, opens up with a Jane Austen quote. Mm-hmm. So the lady shows up and she's like, I know this is a weird request, but why don't you sit down? We're just going to finish this chapter. Mm-hmm. And by the end of it, Lady Bedlington, or whatever her name is really into it. And they decide that they're going to do the literary society, but it's not going to be like a normal hoity-toity. Everybody tries to one-up each other with their knowledge of metaphors and figurative literature. And instead, everybody's just going to show up. They're going to read some chapters of a book, eat tea and cakes, and gossip, which sounds like the best book club ever.
Yeah, because Max has forbidden Lady Beatrice from taking these girls out into society, which she desperately wanted to do. But she's like, I can start a literary society, the type of thing that young men would want to bring their aunts and mothers to. Mm-hmm. And that when they bring them, they may see that we have some beautiful young ladies here that they may want to stay. And so she's plotting.
Oh, and the other thing that happens is the lady comes over for dinner at some point. I don't remember if it's before or after this. But Lady Beatrice creates this whole story about how the girls are her nieces from a dalliance that her mother had when she supposedly died. But she didn't actually die. She just went off to Venice to marry a Venetian
man.
Marchese.
Yeah, whose name was Angelo Chancellotto. because Max is questioning her the whole time in front of Mrs. Bedlingtonham. Right. And he's like, listen, Chance doesn't really sound like a Venetian name. And he keeps calling him an Italian. And then Aunt Beatrice will correct him and be like, Venetian. It's very different. It's the one with the canals. And then Aunt Beatrice will then accidentally say Italian. And Max is like, I thought he was Venetian.
And she's like, oh, I'm glad you're paying attention.
Yeah. He's like, Chance isn't a very Venetian name, is it? And she's like, well, it used to be Chancellotto. But of course it's been Americanized.
We've anglicized it.
Anglicized.
EnglandTimesed it.
Yeah.
So, it's so friggin' cute. There's like an Austrian lord involved at some other point. It's great. It's a whole thing.
And then they straight up tell Mrs. Bedlingtonham that
it's not
it is
true.
a lie. But then when the literary society starts coming over and there's all these people.
No, wait. So Max is like, none of this is true.
Mm-hmm.
And Lady Beatrice like sort of is like, don't pay attention to him.
Yeah.
Like he's
it's
living
hard
in
for
ignorance.
him to accept.
Yeah, it's just like a family scandal.
And
he just doesn't.
There's an Italian involved, and it's a whole thing. What I've learned from these books is like when an Italian gets involved, it gets really confusing and difficult for everybody to deal with.
It is. It absolutely is. So when all of so two things. One, the scene with taking care of the wound is important because A, she sees him fully shirtless and he is hottie McHot.
Yeah.
And B, it gets broken up because her sisters come in and they're like, you were targeted, but why would you be targeted? Why would somebody want to, like, if it's not Mort, the guy who ran the brothel, he wouldn't know our names.
Well, she opens up the letter that she went to the post office for.
Yeah.
And it's addressed to her, but it's got a blank letter in it. And she's like, what the hell? And Max is like, well, it's definitely bait. They sent a letter for you, and then they waited to see who would pick it up, and then they tried to stab you in the face.
Right. And she's like, no, surely not. And he's like, come on, bitch.
So he's very like, who's trying to murder you? You know who's trying to... People don't just not know who's trying to murder them, like, especially ladies about London. You know, like, you know what's up. And she's like, of course I don't know who's trying to murder me.
Right. Like, and to be fair, she doesn't. But she knows more than she's good telling.
Yeah. Because, I mean, Daisy was pretty adamant that this guy that runs the brothel is going to come after them, especially if she's written a letter to the police, which she has. So... it's pretty clear that it's this brothel dude. So also in her inner monologue, we get the whole story about her like previous beau, Lawrence, which it just bears mentioning because it's so fucking sad.
Fucker.
The first family that she was a governess for had a son that came home and he like courted her for like, you know, a week. But that's all it takes. I've watched the movie of Pride and Prejudice. Here's a confession. Never read Pride and Prejudice. I've not.
I haven't either. I haven't read it either. Nope,
Maybe
haven't read it.
We should do that, like for like 100th episode or something.
It sounds terrible.
What?
It sounds very
We just lost.
Here's the thing.
300 listeners.
Here's the thing. I would like to.
That's a slice.
Do that. No, it's not. Because here's the thing. I love the story, but I love watching like reincarnations of it. Every time I read one of the Jane Austen quotes at the beginning of this chapter, I was like, I like reading about England Times, but I don't think I want to read in England Times.
That's how I feel.
God.
Yeah.
Like I would have to reread a couple of those sentences. No, I would have to read that thing like 3 times just to make sure.
We are hemorrhaging listeners right now. Can you imagine? Already on the friendship cult, they're saying things about like needing to discipline us. And
I know.
What did what's her face say? She said we need.
She was like, we're gonna have to be taskmasters
to get us to
getting
put out
the reading list.
And I was like, this is a cult, you bitches. You can't taskmaster us. And they're like, oh, maybe you need to pin the list on the top of the thing. I'm like, we make the ideas around here. Can you imagine?
Also, I had an idea. We're going to start pinning them.
Yeah. Can you imagine the mutiny that's going to be on our hands if we start talking about how we don't like Pride and Prejudice? They are going to just take over the podcast. Like, they're going to be at our house.
They might.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And then it's just going to be us calling each other every week, alone again, with our one listener.
I still like it. Our one loyal listener. I am fine with that.
Who do you think it is? Who do you think was our first one listener?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. But we're going to start, like, Spartacus is going to start echoing all across the world. Because they've already been fucking adorable about it.
Yeah, unless they love Pride and Prejudice. We've lost some Spartaci for sure.
Okay. So he's trying to help her, and she's
no,
like, "I don't
we got
trust
to talk
you."
about Lawrence.
Oh,
so he courted her for like a week, which is the length of time you need to, and he's like, walking around in the park with her with his hand in the crook, like a gentleman and stuff, and he's like talking to her about
kisses.
her hopes and dreams and blah blah blah. And then one night he grabs a boob, and she's like, "Oof, this is going pretty fast," but he super loves me, and he told her he wants to marry her and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So one night he slips into her room, gets on top of her, and she's kind of like, no, but she's also kind of like, yes, because she super loves him. And also, like, she was so lonely and didn't know anyone for, like, years because all she did was governess all day. And then his parents break in on them and blame her.
Well, because I think, the dad blames her. The mom is understanding. Because I think he, like, grabs something.
Lawrence was betrothed, she explained, but young men had needs. The same thing had happened to the last governess, is what the mother said.
Yeah, so the mom gave her
I'm sorry,
good
but
reference.
Young men have needs?
No. I'm not saying she was like woke. Okay. I'm just saying that she's not like the dad who is like, you put a spell on him, you witch.
What EnglandTimes Woke is?
Yes.
It's like, but young men have needs.
Yeah, boys will be boys.
The most woke you get.
Young men have needs. I'll give you a good reference still. That is as woke as we get. Yeah.
And she also said if Abby found herself with child that the family would deny it. How woke?
Super woke. She got her reference, didn't she?
Hashtag EnglandTimes Woke. Oh, and also she saw him one more time before she left and the family left.
Oh,
and
that fucker.
She said, you said we were to be married. And he said, why would I marry you? You're poor, you're plain, and all I ever wanted from you was what I nearly got last night. But you had to go and screech, didn't you?
Oh.
So she thinks she's the ugliest, plainest, most horriblest thing. And she thinks that kiss was all her fault. And she understands why he keeps apologizing because he didn't actually want to kiss her. And, it's just awful.
Oh. So he's like, what I came to talk to you about was I bought this house and I want you to be the one to, like, decide where furniture goes and make it a home. And I don't want to leave my aunt to do it because she's too enfeebled. So do you want to come look at the house? And they have this adorable little outing, but she's finally like, I think it's going to be in her inner monologue, she's like, it's too hard to
make a home for you and your new wife. Awful.
Yeah, because he's about to go up to North England to, like, iron everything out. And she's like, you should just leave me to do this because I can't imagine, like, I just keep imagining making our home and I don't want to think about it anymore.
And then during a quiet moment, he says, about yesterday, he began, and she said, please, if you tell me you're sorry for kissing me one more time, I'll scream. There was a short silence and she turned her head for a quick glance at him and he seemed to be trying not to smile. Actually, I was going to say that I'm certain you and your sisters are in some kind of trouble, and if you could only bring yourself to trust me, I'm sure I could help. Oh, Abby felt herself blushing. He hadn't even given the kiss a second thought. And then he says, I apologize for the kiss, but I'm not sorry.
Not sorry!
And she's like, oh shit, he was into it. He wants all of this.
All of this.
I wish I could say it's on, but it's still not.
It's still not on.
It's not on for 300 pages in this book.
No. But I will say that there was enough, and even when it is on, the sex is pretty mediocre in my humble opinion. I was not moved by it at all. I was. However, were you? Good. Maybe I should reread it. I don't know. But I was so into it for just the actual romance and the lady love that I was never pissed. I was never bored. I was never anything. So
Mm-hmm.
She does this whole thing.
He goes to Manchester.
That's right.
Because that's where his fiancée, Henrietta, is. Because he's got to make arrangements for his wedding. But little does he know that Henrietta and her father have come to London to make arrangements for the wedding. What a happenstance.
What? Also, they have the first meeting of the Literary Society, and it's a big hit. But that doesn't matter. So, they show up at Lady Beatrice's door. He is totally vulgar and a laborer and like a super rich one. But like Lady Beatrice is just all aflutter in a bad way because he's talking about money. He's talking about success. He's talking about this. He's talking about that. The girl is 18 and she seems like nothing sauce. And Lady Beatrice is finally putting all the pieces together and she's like, this motherfucker. I thought that she was this older woman who like got his heart and was making him keep a promise. But there's no way a goddamn 9-year-old girl would do this. No. This is about money. This is about something else.
And she knows his uncle that left them in ruin. And he's like, and she gets it. She figures it out. Yeah. That he needed to. So what happened was this.
What happened was
he found this guy, met this lord at a thing.
He's not a part of the gentry at all. He's just
I don't know.
I'm just making sure everybody
the
else
way
knows.
That you were like Erin.
Oh,
and it's like,
sorry.
come on, Melody.
I
just pulled a word. Yeah, I just pulled a word out of the air and that. So this.
I didn't want to confuse our very astute listener.
What is Henry?
He's just a man of industry.
This man of industry that he met had a thing, and he loaned Max.
He bought the house. He bought Davenham House in London under the agreement that Aunt Beatrice could live there as long as she wanted.
So she's never owned the house. This guy has owned the house the whole time. And he loaned Max the amount of money he needed to go off sailing and become a spice colonist, colonialist person. And he loaned him that money to get his sailboat or whatever. And then Max promised him that he would marry his daughter when she came of age.
In addition to paying everything off with interest.
Yep.
So he told this guy, Henry Parslow, that he would be able to pay everything back and come back to England within 10 years. He did it in 9 with a fortune.
Hey-o.
So he's really impressive. But now he's got to pay his almost literal pound of flesh.
And, good for Henry Parslow, though, because he, invested in this 18-year-old who he didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's not a bad guy.
No, not at all. He's just very insistent, and he's got his priorities a little messed up. But, it's England times.
Yeah.
So Max comes back, and he's like, fuck me sideways. She was never supposed to figure out this girl's age until we were married because she's gonna figure it all out, the smart old bird.
Yeah.
And they have a whole talk and she's like, how bad was it? And he's like, Aunt Beatrice, you
don't even know.
Idea.
And Beatrice is like, we had a trust and you can't get into a trust. And he's like, he got into the trust. You don't understand. This was real bad. And she's like, okay, well, I get why he did this. I understand how this was all set up, but you've paid him back in full. So, and with interest. And so he's paid
why
back.
Why are you breaking 3 people's hearts?
And he's like, 3 people's hearts? And she's like, come on now. Are you the blindest blind man? And he's like, okay, I know. She loves me and I loves her. And then she's like, you just got to break your promise. And he's all like, my honor, because that's a thing.
Right. Fucking England times.
Yeah. So.
What is the catalyst that makes him... Oh, somebody's almost abducted. Jane and Damaris. Damaris are almost abducted out front because after the fight, he hired 2 more giant burly footmen to follow them around. But Jane, being the idiotic 17-year-old that she is like, we're not in any danger. And she and Damaris keep on going on these little tiny outings without the fucking footmen. So as they're right outside the house, they almost get carted off in a carriage by Jane almost does.
Jane.
Damaris gets knocked down and the whole thing. But 3 dudes intercede and they save them and it's great.
What I liked was when Abby scolded Jane about this, she said, look at your little excursions. Look at what almost happened. And she's like, and I don't mean that you were almost abducted. I mean that you nearly got these 2 footmen fired for not looking after you good enough. Good attitude, Abby.
She's a good dude.
Good work.
Abby's an excellent human. So after all of this happens, this is when she spills everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He pulls her into a side room and he's like, you have got to tell me what's going on. And she's like, fucking fine.
Here it is.
So she tells him everything, thinking that he's going to be totally disgusted with her and completely disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And
he says, I have to
he
think.
says, I need time to think. And then immediately fucks off. And then 30 minutes later, he takes Daisy somewhere. And they're like, to
a
Daisy
magistrate.
didn't do anything wrong.
Dear God.
Oh, yeah, takes Daisy to a magistrate. And she's like, Daisy is the hero of this story. Like, Daisy didn't do anything. So they're all freaking out. Lady Beatrice is like, you got to trust him. He's a good boy. He would never do anything to hurt us.
Then, unbeknownst to them, but beknownst to us, he goes to see Henrietta in the hotel room. Well, he really goes to see her father, but Henrietta is there in the hotel room. And he's like, well, first he goes to see her and her dad. And he's like, this 18-year-old girl doesn't want to marry me. I'm 30 or whatever. And so he's like, do you really want to marry me? And she's like, yes, my lord. And he's like, but like, really though, if there were nothing, you want to marry me, you want that. And she's like, of course, my lord. And like, and he's like, okay, there's no way getting it out of it that way. So he goes to see her father and he's going to call it off, but he's not there. Only she's there.
And she looks really startled when he shows up.
Yeah.
They're like bags packed and it's all very odd.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, we can't get married. And she's like, not even fazed by it. She's like, okay, can you just not tell my dad till tomorrow though?
Yeah.
And he's like, I guess I can do that for you.
Yeah.
Like, sure.
So then tomorrow comes.
Tomorrow happens. Whoa, wait. First, Daisy comes home and she tells them the best thing ever. He takes Daisy to the magistrate. She gets carted around to all these other magistrates.
And all the magistrates give her tiny cakes. And she is like in heaven. She's like, you would not believe the tiny cakes that all these magistrates have. And everybody's like, that's not the story, Daisy. And she's like, you wouldn't think that you could get full on tiny cakes, but you can if you eat enough tiny cakes. I love her.
She's the best. So our outspoken, ethical, absolutely beautiful of heart Daisy. She's so good. Her and her cockney ass.
Your crazy limp. Oh, yeah. Daisy has a crazy limp. One of her legs is shorter than the other.
Yeah, because I think she suffered some pretty bad childhood abuse, and it's all a thing. Oh, our beautiful Daisy. So she gets carted around to all these magistrates, and they get people from out of town to come in because Bow Street, the main house of justice or whatever, has been compromised. And Mort is he's got spies up in there.
Yeah.
So they round everybody up, and Mort gets arrested. He is definitely going to hang.
He's going to hang for this, for the ruination of so many women. So
many of the women's. And then Daisy's like, and don't worry, I told him about all of his satellite offices too.
Yeah.
And it's a whole great thing.
And they gave me more cakes.
And I got so many tiny cakes.
Yeah.
Then the next morning happens.
Yeah.
He's about to tell Abby because he thinks that he can't tell Abby that how much he loves her until he's completely and utterly done with the Parsleys.
Well, he's going to go over and tell Henry Parslow because now it's the next day. And Henrietta said, don't tell him till the next day. But now it is. So he's getting ready to go tell Henry. But then Henry bursts up in the house and is like, Dad, there's so much stuff. Meanwhile, Daisy has gotten a letter and she opens it and it says...
No. Abby got the letter.
That's what I meant. Abby got the letter and she opens it up and it says something like, to
get the fuck out of town.
You're a whore. And to all the sisters, so-called sisters who are also whores and sluts. And that's all she can read before Henry bursts in and Max is there. So she like folds it up and stuffs it in her sleeve. And she's like real rattled by this because that is not England Times talk.
That is not the proper decorum, everyone.
Right. And Henry's like, you guys won't believe this. Henrietta has run off with the son of a clergy footman carriage guy.
Nope. With my secretary.
Sure. Yep. That is the same.
Yep.
I knew it was somebody who was a worker and not a ton. So then she ran off with him. And he's gone.
Blaming
her.
He's blaming Max.
And he's like...
And Max is like, I haven't told.
Because he knew he went there that
Abby
night.
Yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't told Abby that I loves her yet. So Henry Parslow is like, all right, I'll keep my fucking mouth shut.
Right.
But you got to go help me stop this thing. And this is when Abby gives him a dressing down, and you know how I feel about those too. So she's like, how dare you?
Because he says he's going to disown Henrietta. Yeah. And she's like, you will not disown her.
How dare you? And like, why would you even want to make your dreams happen through your daughter? Like, why aren't you going for a knighthood yourself? And all this nonsense. And it's obviously a trigger for her because it's literally what happened to her parents.
Right. And so he's like, okay, I won't disown her and I'll like do the wedding or whatever. But they've still got to go after her because you know what happens when girls go off with guys. If you've seen the movie Pride and Prejudice,
they're going to Gretna Green.
You've got to track them down immediately and get them married to each other.
Yeah. So Henry asks Max to go with him and help. And Max is like, of course I will. And so Abby's got tears in her eyes and she's like, okay, well, I'll in her mind, she's like, I'm never going to see him again. And in his mind, he's like, oh, she knows that I love her and she knows I'm coming back for her. And he gives her like a meaningful hand squeeze or something.
No, it's a palm kiss. You know how intimate those are.
Oh, Jesus. They actually, I'm fanning myself right now because that is.
Yeah. It was a palm kiss and a face caress. But she thinks he's off to get her away from this guy to marry her himself. Yes. Because she doesn't know that he's called it off.
Yeah. So he gets back 2 days later.
I'm so glad they fast forwarded that shit.
Same.
I was like, he's going off to the thing. Oh my God. And this is an hour ago. And I still have like 50 pages left in this thing. And I'm like, fuck. And then the next page is 5 days later, Max returned. And I was like, good girl. Autumn Bride author whose name I cannot.
Anne Gracie.
Anne Gracie. So good girl, Anne Gracie.
Yep.
Okay.
So he shows up and Featherby's like, the girls are gone. And he's like, what?
Gone?
And so he goes up to Lady Beatrice and he's like, what the fuck is happening? And she's like, well,
they fucking left because you're an idiot.
Yeah, you didn't tell anybody how you felt. You just went off to slay dragons and you didn't use your words, you fucker.
Women need words, is what she says. Women don't want actions. They don't want to be saved. They want to hear how you feel.
That's right. Or at least we need the two hand in hand.
And he's like, well, where have they gone? And she's like, I don't know where they've went. And like, does this whole thing. And he's just like, oh my God, I'm such a Yeah, she's like, how can we ever find them? He's like, I'm such a moron. And he's like, oh my God, and I love her so much. And what have I done? And then she's like, I sent them in a carriage with Featherby and I have their address. They're in Bath. And he's like, how dare you?
Why would you make me go through all of that?
And she's like, because I needed you to understand how stupid you were, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, can we also say, like, halfway through this thing, Lady Beatrice has dyed her hair back to red, which it used to be, with henna. And everyone is, like, really surprised and shocked by, like, how red it is and how, like, 90 years old she is. And she's like, they've restored me to my natural color, these girls, and I've recovered from my illness, and so it has started growing again in my natural color. And I just think that's
they've restored my youth.
Yeah, I just think that's the funniest thing that she's just going around, like, unabashedly just being like, oh, look, how my hair is growing now in this color.
She's so
I
good.
love her.
So he goes off to Bath's, and he gets a hotel in the nicest part of the place. And he's going to go find them. And he shows up and they're gone. So then he goes down to the storefront area of Bath's.
Oh,
and
wait, before he does, though.
Oh,
sorry. Wait, what? I don't know when this was. I'm just flipping through my notes. He goes out with Freddie and it says the two friends got quietly and companionably drunk. Companionably drunk is the funniest thing in the world. And I just wanted to share that with you, HBs, if you ever want to get companionably drunk together, because that is the best. Sorry.
Erin.
All right.
I do believe we've been companionably drunk together.
Right. Oh, yes, we have. Oh, also, the reason that Abby left was that the letter, because the letter said, I'm going to ruin, you're going to
leave.
Yeah, you need to leave, or you're going to, what will they say about Lord Davenham and Lady Beatrice? And so Lady Beatrice did try to keep her there.
Yeah.
But she was like, I have to go, or your house is going to be ruined by what sluts we are. So
that's right. We're super sluts. So he shows up and he immediately just comes up and kisses on her like a big movie sweeping kiss.
Let me find it.
Yes, please.
Oh, when he's trying to explain himself to Lady Beatrice, she says, oh, spare me the thought processes of men. Just one of the best lines I've ever read in a book. Spare me the thought processes of men. Okay.
That's right.
Okay, here it is. He'd almost lost her because of his own stupid stubbornness. The thought chilled him to his spine. Never again. On that thought, he stepped closer. Abby. She turned, her mouth forming a delicious O of surprise. She was pale, and her eyes, though beautiful, were a little heavy. He was not the only one who had been losing sleep then. Lord Davenham, how did you... He kissed her right there in the street. At the first taste of her, a deep rush of hunger set in his head, spinning. He'd wanted so long for this, for her. He thought he'd lost her, and now he'd found her. Max, what are you... He kissed her again, indifferent to the stares and muttering of the scandalized passers-by. He feared he might never again hold her with her taste, her sweet, intoxicating abbiness. It really does.
So sweet.
The poems are written.
Yeah, they are.
They're great.
They're so good. So he takes her back to his hotel.
Wait, no, you cannot fast forward to that.
I'm sorry.
He's like, we need to talk. We need to go to a hotel right now. And her sisters are right there for this whole thing.
Yeah.
And Jane, poor, sweet, innocent Jane says, but if you take her back to a hotel, won't she be compromised? Jane asked. Max nodded. I certainly hope so. Abby's eyes widened. A delicious blush colored her cheeks, but she didn't say a word. Jane looked prepared to argue the point until Daisy elbowed her firmly in the ribs. Ignoring Jane's surprised look, the little Cockney winked at Max, turned to Abby and said, well, go then, Abby. Run along and let the nice man compromise you. You know you want to. Max grinned. He'd always liked Daisy.
Oh, I've always liked Daisy.
Yeah.
Oh, she's so good.
So then they go to a hotel.
Yeah, they do. And he's like, I'm in love with you. I've been in love with you the whole time. You're the best. I want to marry you. La, 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 la.
They make out. Then he's like, we got to stop it. Oh, he proposes to her. He gives her the one ring that Lady Beatrice had left.
No, Lady Beatrice found her rings.
Yeah.
We don't know how many there are.
Oh,
but
sure. I'll ring. And
so this is an emerald ring.
Which, by the way, you guys, is not a good engagement ring stone. I tried to do that, and all the jewelers told me that it's too soft and it'll get all scratched up. So if you're thinking about an emerald engagement ring, just so you know, a good jeweler wouldn't sell you one for that because it gets scratched. Okay.
Interesting.
Yep.
So
they're soft stones.
So then he's like, we gotta stop this, otherwise, like it's gonna go places.
But she's
like, I wants it to go places.
Yeah. She sees like he's like got a boner, and she's like,
oh, yeah.
Would you like some help being released from those buttons? And he's like, no, that's probably a bad idea. And he's like, I can wait until we're married. And she's like, I can't.
And
then it's on.
TM. So they do some sexes, and it's good, it's fine, but like as far as like I've waited 300 pages for this.
Sure.
There weren't fireworks for me.
We've read 2 books that concluded with sex. The other one is Icecapade. I would say that was a more beautiful sex scene.
Except for the satiny ripples.
Except for the satiny ribbons of his excitement. What was it? Satiny ribbons?
I don't know.
I don't remember. It was jets. It was satiny jets. Ribbon jets. I don't remember. But I remember jets being part of it. And I'm just like, whoa, like a hot tub. Like, you know.
Yeah. And then they get married at Davenham home, right?
Mm-hmm.
In his little his churchyard at home.
Autumn.
In autumn. The autumn bride. Yes. And it's really cute because like they go off to get ready because she doesn't want to like flaunt to all of her sisters that they're already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful wedding, and I don't remember what the epilogue is, but
it's the wedding.
Adorable.
The wedding is the epilogue.
It is?
The end of the book is they're done with sex and they're in a snuggle, and they say
that's right
that they're going to make a home together. And she's like, I've never had a home before, and she like has a tear, and he's like, neither have I, you know, because he's been traveling and in the boarding house or whatever. So and then the epilogue is the wedding.
Yes, and it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Daisy makes her the most beautiful dress.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Daisy's dream is to be a dress person, a modiste. Yep.
Yeah.
I just don't have a reason to learn the words. There's no reason to, except that I have this podcast.
I hear you. Okay, Erin, do you have a lady love?
I have an embarrassing lady love.
Yeah.
Are those the best kind?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's roughly half of my lady loves.
That's fair. I mean, it's not embarrassing like crotchless leggings embarrassing, but
that's not embarrassing either.
You're right. This is real world embarrassing. All right, guys, listen. It's trendy. Trendy is not the right word. We have a lot of options in this day and age, and one of those options is chewy vitamins. Vitamins that taste like candy. There's the sugar bear ones. Yeah. There's the multivitamin ones. There's the folic acid. You can do anything with chewy, delicious vitamins.
Uh-huh.
Here's a PSA from Erin. Here's a lady love from Erin. Okay. If you're going to have delicious, chewy, gummy multivitamins, keep them in a place where you're just going to take one. Like the place where you brush your teeth in the morning before going to your place of business. Or if you work in the home, maybe lock them up in one of those 24-hour containers. Because here's what I do.
Oh, no.
Is I keep mine at work. And did I tell you like a year ago when I had vitamin A poisoning? No.
Only you, bitch.
Well, here's the thing. I get so busy. And then I work through lunch. And it's like chaos, you know? And then you're like, oh, my tummy's really rumbling. I'll just eat like a couple of those multivitamins. Like, and you're only supposed to take 2, and I probably was taking like maybe, I don't know, 6 every once in a while, and I got these like weird sores.
Obviously. You were ODing.
The corner of my mouth. And I was like, these aren't cold sores, these are weird, and I don't even get cold sores, so like, this is like a weird thing, and then I Googled it, and it's vitamin A poisoning, and I was like, oh wow, this is sad. So that happened, and I thought that I learned my lesson. No. So just like, listen, guys, don't keep them in a place where you're hungry because you might end up with vitamin poisoning. I hope I'm not the only one in the world.
Or just like invest in some gummy bears. Like, I don't know.
Or just like don't. Like, just don't. Like, just have
or
some
just, like,
level
go
of self-control.
Get a burrito, Erin.
Especially after the first time. Yeah.
Feed yourself.
After the first time you had vitamin A poisoning, to not be like, meh. I'll do it again. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
But
so that's my lady love. Don't.
I would say just keep some frozen burritos around instead.
Yeah, I should probably do that. That's probably smarter.
All right. My lady love is lame, but just fucking true. So here it is, guys. The weather has finally decided that it's going to be like spring/summer here.
Ha. Oh, and, okay. You added here.
Yeah, here. And I've been, like, yesterday, I just got up with Ember, and instead of, he's become a little bit of a TV tyrant. We didn't give him screen time for, like, the first 2 years of his life. And so now, you know, we do, like, every once in a while, but it was, like, 5 minutes of a Disney song or whatever, you know? And now he's like demanding specific shows that I didn't even know existed. And he doesn't watch TV like anywhere else. So I don't know how this happens. Anyway, so yesterday morning he was like, Thomas, watch Word Party, watch Octonauts. And I was like, bro, you get yourself outside. So I just took him and we didn't take a stroller or anything. We just went to the park and we tootled around. We went on this walking path that overlooks the river. We watched the construction vehicles that were near there because he's fucking obsessed. And and then this morning, we came back and I had breakfast out in our backyard at our little table. This morning, I got up and I was watering everything and I decided just to take some extra time to do some weeding and, like, just get outside if you can. Because, boy, howdy, I feel so much better when I can just, like, take some time outside.
Can I tell you, I feel so much worse.
Oh.
Hearing your story. Do you see what I'm wearing?
Yeah, I do. I do.
And I'm not the cold one. You're the cold one.
I am the cold
Melody
one.
is wearing a tank top. I'm wearing like a duster sweater. It's so cold all the time.
Ugh. Move.
Yeah. Oh, and we lost our window. I can't talk to you about it now. We'll have to talk about it on the bonus episode. But we have a whole window that's covered in cardboard right now.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So that's my lady love.
It.
Get outside. Eat outside if you can.
But don't eat more gummy bear vitamins than is the prescribed dosage.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Because vitamin A will get you every time.
Yeah. Or, you know what? Just swallow the regular vitamins, you know?
Mm-hmm.
All right. At Heaving Bosoms on Instagram. At Heaving_Bosoms on Twitter. HeavingBosomsPodcast@gmail.com. Facebook is Heaving Bosoms Podcast, or our fan group cult is the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult. And then now we have a website, which is heavingbosomspodcast.com.
All right. So keep being a badass and love yourself as much as you love the Chance sisters.
Simple but fine.
Yeah, right? All right, bye, Erin.
Bye, ML.
Hi, I'm Nicole.
Sarah.
Hillary.
And we're the hosts of the Feminine Mistake Podcast.
Each month we sit down with a guest to watch movies that are 20 years or older.
And see how they hold up to today's modern feminist lens.
Why do mermaids have such low self-esteem?
Why is it so funny when men take care of babies?
What exactly did Jenny die of in Love Story?
These are the kind of hard questions we ask ourselves on the Feminine Mistake Podcast. The Feminine Mistake Podcast, now available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Podbean. Do you guys think that was okay?
Yeah, I don't know. We sounded kind of shrill.
Really?
Yeah, women's voices are just so grating on the radio.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever heard those guys over at the Nerdist or Last Podcast on the Left? I mean, they're just biologically more funny than we are.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Hey, you. Yes, listener, you. Are you loving the show? If so, please leave a rating and review in your podcast app. The 90 seconds you take to say something nice not only helps new people find the show, but it makes me super smile over at HBHQ. Also, I've had a few people ask, and the answer is yes. We are still doing the 5-star bribe. If you leave us a review with 5 stars, then we'll do whatever book you want. We're real deep into the list, though, so it might be a while. Lilas! Okay, back to the show.